Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my ridiculous neighbor claimed my $200,000 1969 Ford Mustang Boss is stolen and a black man like me cannot have a car like this. He then demanded I give him my car as a wedding gift and ended up stealing it. Here is what happened. The title story starts like this. I'm gonna get this out of the way right at the start. My neighbor is extremely racist and since I've been living next door has been engaging in what I will call casual racism for the start of this story. If that doesn't make sense, it basically means I can tell he was racist from the start, but it wasn't until later in the story that he was being as obvious about it. I'm really into cars and actually work during the day as a mechanic. I come home looking greasy and grimy, and my neighbor loves to point it out. Since he wears a suit, he thinks he's just better than me, but anyway, back to cars, I own a 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 429. This car is in great condition and worth roughly $200,000, or actually even more. I got it from one of my regular clients that was getting older and wanted to give away some of his cars to people he knew that would take care of them. It was the best gift I ever gotten in my life. Since then, the comments from my neighbor had become much worse. He would ask me things like if I stole the car and that a car that nice was made for a white man. He really was not trying to hide the hate anymore and I was getting sick of it. I had to be the bigger person and not react as much as it pained me to do so. I knew he was doing this all out of jealousy because he did not have a car as nice as mine. Things started to come to a boil though after he got remarried to his wife for the second time. That would make this their third marriage to each other, so you can just imagine how dysfunctional they must be. When I saw him after the wedding, I was still trying to be the bigger person and be cordial to him. Me, congrats on the wedding. Neighbor, you know that a good neighbor would have a present for me, but I see you're just standing there empty-handed. I thought it was a joke at first, but he wasn't laughing or even smiling, he was dead serious. You expected me to get you a gift? We were not even exactly invited to your wedding. Neighbor, well, there wasn't really anybody of your kind there. Still, you can make things right and give me the Mustang as a gift. All can be forgiven. Me, you must be high if you think that I'm giving you my car as a present or even a gift at all. Neighbor, listen here, I have had enough of you pretending to be fancy with that car. We both damn well know that a car like that belongs to a white guy, and not a dirty N-word like you. I guess you're too dumb to take a hint, but you better hand it over to somebody that is meant to have it. Me, don't you dare stand there and call me slurs. You're a piece of racist crap that will never have a car half as nice as this one. Because nobody would want to give an a-hole like you anything. The only gift you deserve is a bag of dog poo. I'll admit it, I lost my cool the second I heard the N-word coming out of that man's mouth. He wasn't happy about me talking like that and rushed me to push me onto the ground. I was dazed and couldn't get up fast enough to stop him from getting in my car and driving away with it. I assumed he wanted to go on some joyride or something and would be back with it after a little while. I know people will say that I should have called the police, but I was kind of scared to do that. This was a mostly white area and they might take the side of a nicely dressed white man over a black mechanic that obviously couldn't afford to buy a car like that. Instead, I decided to wait and see what would happen like a total idiot. Hindsight really is 20/20. He came back hours later but in an Uber and my car nowhere in sight. I was waiting and confronted him right away about what happened to my car. He started laughing and telling me how he drove it up a path that I know doesn't have guardrails and drove it right off a cliff, jumping out first obviously. I was pissed and I knew that a fall like that probably meant the car was destroyed. I told him that he wouldn't get away with destroying my car and he started mocking me. He told me that he was bigger, stronger and smarter than me and there was nothing I would ever be able to do about it. He had the same thought as me of cops believing him instead and me being the bad guy. He wasn't that smart because he didn't notice that I had pulled out my phone and it was at my side recording the entire thing. I showed him and despite it still recording, he lunged at me and tried to get me to the ground again, wanting the phone to delete the evidence. I was ready this time and a simple sidestep and a kick to the back had him on the ground with my foot on him. I didn't want to hurt him in fear of getting arrested myself, but it's legal where I am to hold back an attacker until police arrive. When they did, I was right in the fact they immediately assumed I was the bad guy and did something wrong, especially with my neighbor telling them how I attacked him unprovoked. Me, officer please, if you just look at the video I took, it has him literally confessing to stealing my car and driving it off a cliff. If you get officers to go where he's talking about, I'm sure you will find a crashed car. Officer, let me take a look at that. Neighbor, he is lying. That video is fake and you shouldn't believe a word that he's telling you. They watched it anyway, and with it had enough evidence to arrest my neighbor for grand theft auto and attempted assault. He was furious and demanding to press charges against me for attacking him, but since I had video proof I only defended myself, I was not arrested. As we are getting into the court aspect of things, I will make it fairly brief, since this story has been going on for a while already. He was found guilty of stealing my car, and it got him a 3-year sentence. The attempted assault got thrown out by the DA, but that was okay because I was in for a surprise. I didn't know the details of the case, so I was unaware that the state had another charge against him. This one was for public endangerment because of where he threw the car off the cliff. It landed in a public area, and it was only a miracle that it didn't end up hitting or hurting anybody. Still, because of how dangerous it was, that got him a sentence of 5 years in prison. Finally, for the car, I was filing a civil lawsuit to get him to pay me the money for it. He was fighting it, saying that the car was not worth as much as I said it was worth, but I had proof of that, plus the fact the car had no chance of being repaired from the crash. So he was now going to prison and owed me $200,000 for smashing my car. I really do miss the car, but I'll say I'm happy the racist ended up in jail and making me have the money he constantly mocked me for. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you enjoyed this story, then please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and maybe even like the video, because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much. The next one is titled Too Tall for You. I'm a 5'9" female with long blonde hair, and in my late teens, early 20s I looked enough like Christina Applegate that people randomly stopped me and asked for an autograph. I spent one Halloween in Houston allowing a whole club to assume I was her, never said I was, they just assumed and started tripping all over themselves to get me a VIP table and all the other good stuff. Best Halloween ever. So anyway, this was back in the mid-90s and I was in my first year of college. I was a theater major and one of the first classes I took gave an assignment. We were to watch the current play happening on the main stage and write a major report about it. I did just that. Now, I'm a pretty good writer, I'm a published author now and a school teacher, and I've always been an avid reader, reading approximately 300 pages a day, back then before kids. I was called into the theater dean's office, also the teacher of this class. Without asking me a single question, he took one look at me and immediately told me that I need to go on back to my dorm room and begin packing. That by nightfall I would no longer be a student at this university, that this school didn't and wouldn't abide by my cheating, etc. I began to cry and freak out. I was in shock. I had no earthly clue what he was referring to. When I finally got him to explain, he seemed put out. He told me that there was no way I had written the paper that I turned in by myself and that any plagiarism or having another person write it for me was against school rules and I was being expelled. After collecting myself, I was adamant that I had indeed been the sole writer of said paper. He argued with me a bit and continued to insult my abilities and intelligence. I finally got him to agree to let me bring him some of my high school research papers and book reports so he could see that this paper was not a fluke but was indeed my usual way of writing. Luckily, I had brought them to college with me in case I needed any of my previous research. 2 birds, 1 stone, right? I trucked my rear back to my dorm and returned with them in tow. He took about 20 minutes while I sat and watched him read them. Then he handed them back to me and said, "I guess this shows that you might have written the paper, but I'll be keeping an eye on you." For 4 years I had this man breathing down my back and being overly critical of everything I did. One project he loved, said it was the best he had ever seen in all his days, and then he found out I did it and tried to start talking smack about it, and everyone noticed and it was weird. Now, back in high school this exact same thing happened my freshman year with a book report. I had to have my parents come up to the school to stand behind me and inform the school that just because they think I don't look smart, I might actually be. So here is the long-awaited revenge. After I finally became a published author, I sent both my college dean and my high school teacher each a copy of my book with a very personal inscription on the inside of the cover page. Let's just say they will remember me and the horrible judgmental accusations they jumped to for the rest of their lives. And the next one is titled HOA Gets What They Deserve. Back in high school, I was all about my car. Don't get me wrong, it was a rolling POS, but it was my car. It had a trade-in value of maybe $5, but it was my car. I was learning how to take care of it, by which I mean I found where the dipstick was and how to pull it. I hadn't yet moved on to tire inflation, one step at a time. So then one day after school, I drove over to my friend's place. We jump out, pop the hood, pull the dipstick, check the oil, and it was fine, so we put the hood back on. I had no idea what an HOA was nor what it meant. I was just a happy, ignorant teenager eager to demonstrate how responsible I was with my wheels. A few days go by and we are hanging out at my friend's place when his mom comes home. She starts giving us the business in that "I'm annoyed but trying not to be" voice about a warning she received from the HOA regarding repairing cars in your driveway, complete with a photo of my POS with the hood up. Really, she was being pretty good, though clearly annoyed. We explained that we were not repairing anything, that I was just checking the oil level and didn't even need any tools. Picture just had the hood up. She softened quite a bit and the focus of her annoyance shifted from us to the HOA, since it's entirely reasonable for anyone to check the level of oil in a car. She then finds her copy of the HOA rules and we all read them together. Sure enough, there's a bylaw that says you cannot repair a car in the driveway. I protest that I was not repairing anything, I was just checking the oil. Reading the exact rules on exactly what was forbidden sparked an idea. I looked at my friend, raised an eyebrow and say, "Fight the power? Fight the power." I propose my plan to his mom and ask for permission since she's gonna have to deal with the fallout. She is on board with, since she thinks this is supremely stupid, and we set in motion. Cue the malicious compliance. Every day after school, my friend and I drove our POS machines to his place, parked in their driveway, raised the hoods and just looked at the engines. No tools, we were not even near them, we didn't check the oil, we didn't so much as touch them nor wipe them down with a rag. All we did was expose them to the birds, the sky, and God above just to let them breathe. After a while I got bored, so I started setting up an easel and drawing my engine 10 minutes at a time. My friend had to one-up me, so decided he needed some tasteful artistic photos with his engine. He judged the best photos would be him laying over the engine shirtless, stroking and fake kissing it. Just absurd, over-the-top moronic high schooler stuff. Predictably, the HOA was on us like stink on crap. The warnings quickly turned into fines, complete with pictures of both vehicles with their hoods up. Then more pictures with mine with its hood up and an easel in front. Then even more pictures with my friend's car with its hood up, him laying in the engine compartment and me taking pictures of him with a camera. Soon enough his mom let us know it was time for the monthly HOA meeting. Of course all three of us had to go in person to protest the fines. So we both show up along with his mom and his mom's stack of fine notices. I bring along my engine drawing and we printed some of my friend's engine photos larger than normal. After a while it was new business time and my friend's mom steps up. I'm pretty sure they expected her to play the "my son and his friends are morons, please make these fines go away, since I didn't know what they were doing" sympathy card. Nope, not a chance. She politely but firmly attested that she was being sent fines for something that was not in the bylaws and asked the board to stop. One of the board members spoke up saying that working on cars was against the bylaws and clearly that's what was going on since both hoods were up. Oh, you should have seen their faces when she corrected them that the bylaw said no repairs were allowed, that there were no repairs going on in any of the pictures, since no tools were visible and that we were just doing art projects for school. Even longer faces were seen when she showed my truthfully completely terrible drawing of my engine along with the date stamped a couple weeks ago pictures. This was back when film cameras stamped the date directly on the picture. Of my friend trying to seduce his engine. The HOA president called for a 5-minute recess, during which the board huddled in a corner of the room. After this, the president said, "Ma'am, we are going to dismiss all your fines. Have a nice evening." We damn near danced out of that meeting. Being the obnoxious idiots that my friends and I were, we had to do the drawing and photo routine a few more times, just to make sure that they were not gonna start sending more fines. They wisely didn't, and being victorious, we soon found other ways to annoy them. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would say props to OP. For being high schoolers, they got pretty respectable revenge on the HOA. Or I guess in this case, it's more of a malicious compliance. But anyway, it was delicious. The next one is titled, How I Got Revenge on a Company. So I am working in a metal manufacturing plant that fabricated appliance faces, washing machines, dryer, etc. and shelving for fridges and other such things. I enjoyed my job as it was pretty laid back. Granted, I was hired on just before Thanksgiving of 2003, just after my daughter was born. There was a strike going on and I became a replacement worker. Normally, I don't like crossing union strike lines, but not all of them walked out to strike, and I had a daughter that was born in July and I needed the money desperately. I was working the welding machine forever, making the shelving frames and packing them in crates to go to the paint department for a powder coat. One day, however, the machine that cut the rods stopped working and we couldn't get it going again, and the engineers said it would be a week or two for parts, so I hopped over to the 12-ton stamping machine and started helping out. We moved dies in and out with a forklift and then have to bolt them in. It was rather high up, so we had a staircase-style ladder on wheels. The wheels would retract when you outweighed on the steps. At least they were supposed to. We had warned our supervisors that they needed to fix these damn things because the wheels would randomly pop back out. That said, they did and had it retagged as safe. This was complete BS. I was up there one night tightening the top bolts on the open die when they popped up. I went over the rail and the thing went the opposite way. I pretty much performed a half gainer and fell into the open die, bounced off with my right shoulder and fell 9 feet to the floor on the same shoulder. I laid there in some scrap pieces and oil for about 10 minutes while my partner and friend Shields came over to help me. He helped me up and then stepped back saying, "Oh damn!" Slowly the pain creeped in. I turned my head and looked and my shoulder was fully separated and pushing in the front. I walked over to the supervisor with my partner and told him what happened. He looked at my shoulder and pushed on it and said, "It's just muscles you haven't used before." Shields responded with, "What the hell? Me?" I was more tactful. "You bald-headed idiot, did the radiation from the sun scorch your brain or was it the fumes in the paint department getting to you again?" "I need to go to the hospital." He relented and said okay, but he docked me a point like an a-hole and I had to drive myself. In a damn manual car. That was fun. Hours later, they managed to reduce me and gave me a lot of painkillers and muscle relaxers. I went in the next day before my shift and talked to HR. My arm was in a sling, they set me up with a company doctor and then sent me home. The next day I saw the doctor and he did several tests, reviewed the x-rays and scheduled an MRI. He also refilled my medicine. He wanted me off work until the MRI results and they agreed. After the results we did physical therapy, which did not help. My shoulder just kept subluxing, coming out of socket and slamming back in, or rather dislocating fully. Finally I got a call from work and they wanted me to come in. The doctor approved me for light duty and this is where it gets fun. I am in a sling, I am really jacked up on narcotics. They want me to inspect the running machines and then sweep and clean them without shutting them off. I explained that I could do it if they were off, but I'm not comfortable around moving active machines because I'm not really aware and I'm honestly high as crap on these painkillers. They said, "Well, we're not gonna pay you while you're sitting at home playing up your injury." I asked them if they had seen the doctor results. No, of course not, so they should trust their company doctor and HR, so they set me to sweeping. Which is not a big deal as it was a giant open area, but eventually that ran out. I started getting everyone's paperwork for them and filling them out and helping out with QA and measuring the parts to make sure they were in spec. It was going good. Too good. So they took a bar stool and set me in an open area where the manager desks were. They did not let me have a desk, they did not let me do paperwork. They would not even let me bring a book or anything to write on. My OG supervisor was fired at some point for something not related to anything really, so I had the original supervisor that hired me and he was an ass. I seriously got up and went to piss and he yelled and carried on like a douchebag. I asked him if he was done and he got red-faced. I asked him why he had me sitting here doing nothing and he said, "Well, you're so hurt, ho ho ho." So the next day I brought in a dunce cap I made and a little sign that said I was being punished for being injured. I talked to HR whom said they couldn't do anything about it even though I had other odds and ends I could do that was beneficial and helped the company out. I asked if it was really necessary for me to sit on a bar stool like I was in timeout when I was 25 years old because I got injured due to their crappy ladder that they lied about. She said that they could not pay for me to sit at home, so I wore the dunce cap and held the sign all night. The entire time I was going through the doctor's visits and gearing up for her surgery and it was looking like I was going to be out for a while. We are about 3 weeks into this crap at this point. I end up being told to go and sort pants by the a-hole supervisor. The parts were coming off of a conveyor near a stamping machine and needed 2 hands on to move. He told me to make do or I am fired, so I go over there pissed off, and 5 hours into it I am sore as hell from doing this left-handed and I'm getting bitched at because I'm slow. And then it happens. I pull muscles in my left arm, back and neck from being a dumbass and not standing up for myself. He curses me up one side and down the other and just takes me to the ER and drops me off. They see me and confirmed and gave me the paperwork. I thought he was waiting in the parking lot, but he actually left. I had to call my mother to come get me, and I was really effed up from all the paint shots. The next day I call into HR and they fire me because I had pointed out and I was on drugs. I had never missed a shift save from the doctor's appointments, going to the ER and physical therapy. Even then, I went in right after my appointments. I was pissed. Yep, definitely pissed off. So I go to my next scheduled doctor's appointment and he gives me my date for surgery. I go through the surgery, recover and do physical therapy while gathering all of my paperwork and preparing to take this to a lawyer. I am finally cleared and declared healed, and then it happens. One day I'm getting up off the couch, my little girl is cradled in my left arm and I push off with my just healed right. Nothing too bad or strenuous, it blows out the back this time. I fell and cracked my head on our entertainment center, bleeding and cursing like hell. It was either take the bump or land on my daughter. ER visit again and they reduce it and say that it looks like I may have muscle damage from what just happened, all the subluxus and what originally happened. I tell the company doctor at the next visit and he not only tells me that this isn't true, but that I am taking advantage of him. He took the sling off and threw it in a garbage can and says there is nothing more he can do for me. The next day, wearing a new sling, my mother walks me into one of the most vicious lawyers in the city. 2 days later, I am seeing a new doctor and getting all sorts of tests. They inject dye with a huge needle that they scraped across the bone, and damn, I don't recommend it. They say there is so much damage that I need another immediate surgery because I am omnidirectional and the first doctor should have been able to see it. As my new one is looking at my old results, he shows me on the MRIs where he can tell how it was apparent in the beginning. Translation: the company doctor half-assed my first surgery and the company is trying to fight me on this, but eventually they relented and I get my surgery. I've got 3 anchors in my right shoulder holding me together. I have to now go to checkups every 6 months, even years later, and I'm now looking at another surgery because there is nerve damage. My lawyer finishes up with them and I won a several thousand, into the 6-figure area, dollar lawsuit from not only the company but the doctor as well. Not 5 months after, the company announced they were bankrupt and we are closing their doors. The crappy supervisor tried to get a job at another factory where my friend was well respected and he knew what was going on. That guy did not get the job and we all ran into him last year. He was working fast food. I would like to think that I had a hand in the company's demise. It would have been good if they had just taken care of me. I would not have sued if they didn't F me over and tried to get me to quit through embarrassment. Edit: I corrected several $1,000s into a more accurate 6-figure area quote without giving away an exact amount. My apologies. And yes, I know that crossing a strike line was not smart, but there were not a lot of decent paying jobs in the area with the favorable hours at the time. I had a newborn that needed a lot of attention due to being under the lights with a temperature check every hour and force feeding her every 2. My girlfriend could not do all the time as the lack of sleep was catching up to her and making her postpartum worse. I did what I had to do to help my family at the time, and I learned a valuable if painful lesson. I know it might not be a juicy, satisfying revenge to most, but I'm ultimately content with the outcome of them having to pay up. My medical bills covered and going back to college all the while, my daughter is well taken care of. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.